So can I drop my hand now? I can drop my hand, right? Oh, drop. Hello, can we confirm the people on Zoom can hear me? Okay, good, thank you. So we'll be using a data set, and I believe the data set has been shared with everybody. If you don't have the data set, please just indicate. Do you have the data set? You say? It was sent, I believe it was sent yesterday. It's an Excel spreadsheet with multiple sheets on it. Do you all have it? Yeah, Excel. Was it Google Sheet? It was an Excel file. Okay, just can you see my screen? This is the data I'm talking about. Do you have it? Okay. So, and yesterday, the instructor yesterday, please, if I'm too fast, you just try and slow me down, just indicate. So we don't, because it's hands-on, we're going to do everything. So please, if you have this data set, how many of you have imported it? You've imported it into your, into your Microsoft Management Studio. You've imported it here, like my case, I have it here as well. So you see, I created a database for it already. I named it cohort 2. And I have the table here. So I just want to confirm if you. The people. Yeah. Share the entire screen. Now I've closed it. Okay. So in my case, I've imported it. But I don't know if you have. If you have not imported it, please just indicate. So I just do it, probably a minute or 2 minutes walkthrough. It will be fast because I'm aware that there was an import. You guys imported yesterday. So that was just the assumption I used. So, okay, for to import, you have to create a database. So I'm opening a query. So, and yesterday we taught how to create a database, right? So create a database. This is the syntax, create data. and whatever you want to call the database. So in my case, I already have cohort 2, so I'll just use cohort 1. But if you want yours to go with mine, you can use cohort 2 in this case. So because I already have cohort 2, I don't want to, because it's a true error. So just create a database and then run it. The goal just like probably I have multiple query and I want to run it. That's what you use for SQL Server. If you have multiple query and you want to run everything, you don't want it to just stop at the top. The first query, you want to run everything down. You use Go to demarcate the query at the end of each query and it runs. So this is what I have. I've created my database and we'll see the output. It shows that a database has been created. Have you all created a database?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you've not, have you installed the app? This particular app, if you've not installed it. So I assume everybody has installed it. So very good. So now I'll just refresh my database. So can you see, I have my database. I right click on it, go to tags. From tags, just move down to import data. Do we have it? Now I move to the next. So I select where my data is coming from. In my case, my data is coming from Excel. And I'll select my data. So I have the data here. I'll just select the data and move. So I'm using the default. So the data that I shared with you, the default database will work for Excel, which is Excel 1997 to 2003. Then I go for next. Now I select where I want to import my data to. So in this case, we are importing it to our clients. We are importing to the local clients on the SQL Server, which you installed yesterday. So, and I've already, you see, I've picked, because I'm installing it on my cohort 1, it's already picked a database cohort 1. But if I want to change the database, I can just change the database from here, do a drop down, and I pick whichever database I want to use. Probably I've not created a database before. I can just pick a default and it goes for the default database. So I'm using one. We go for the next. So what we have to do is to copy the data from our Excel sheet. Now this is what, so in our case, we want to import all the data. We don't just want to work with one data, we want to import all the data. But I want to make an adjustment to some of the data. Yeah, the way the name is coming, I don't like it. So like, I'll remove the dollar sign and the quote from each of the tables, each of the tables name. Yeah, because that's the way. I don't really like to have those syntax there. Not that you can just continue from here. So I don't like to have those special character in my table name. So that's why I'm just doing it. So if you want to leave it, you can just leave it and you see it works for you. But for uniformity, because whatever query I'm going to be running today, they don't have that. And I probably have. You've not seen what? Task. You right click on the data, the database. Okay, I believe that is being handled. So in my case, I just remove them. I'll need to be fast now. So I've renamed my table. So I go for the next. I just want to run the query immediately. So I also pick next and I pick finish. So what it does is it load. Oh, I got that. There was an error there. I should go back and fix that. Oh, yeah, thank you. So it loads, what it does, it copy all the data on the Excel sheet and it copy it to our database. And we already have our data the way we want it. So now you just refresh your database, right click on it, refresh. You can just open and see if you have the data. Now you see we have the data right there. And now we have our sales data. If you look at this way it was structured, we have our sales data according to the year 2018, 2019, and 2020. So the sales data is not even the same. That's something we handle later to also give us an opportunity to learn how to join data together to make up one single table if we want to use that. So that is how you can just import the data. Thank you. So now that we've imported the data, yesterday, I don't know if there is any need to do refresher on what you've done yesterday. I believe you've done a lot of things, like you know how to do select, maximum, minimum, probably calculate sum and all that, counts and everything. So we'll just go on with this, and everything I'm going to explain it detailed and line after line by line, so that you get, so whatever we are going to do in this hands-on session today, everything will be explained, irrespective of you have a prior knowledge of it or not. So you'll be able to follow. So now please, have you all imported your, okay, thank you. So since you've imported, we'll go. So now what we want to do today is how to join tables together. So working with join table, it enable you to bring two tables and you join it with related column. So one thing is that the first column must be related to the second column. So they must have the same column, like probably if it's customer ID, and we have customer ID from the second column. Just so I'm just put on the chat. Okay, so for those online, I am having some questions there. So we just have to, so we imported an Excel sheet, Excel spreadsheet that have multiple sheets in it. So we use the Excel, we didn't use, so maybe I have to mute. So will be coming back here because this one is on here. Okay. So the importation, we use an Excel spreadsheet. So we didn't use the flat. The flat import is you are importing like a tab separated value or a CSV, comma separated value. So in this case, we are using an Excel spreadsheet. So if you want to import this data that was shared, please use the import data and select not flat. Don't use the flat. Okay. To CSV. So when you converted it to CSV, what did the other table, the other sheet in the Excel sheet? So that is why. So like if we don't have to go through that, that is quite advanced. If you want to use like, if you see the Excel that was shared, we have it in XLS. There's the third X is not there. So meaning we are using an old version of Excel sheet. So for you to use the other one, you have to install that particular Access database, the recent one that match the version of the Excel workbook you are using. So that's just the difference. So for simplicity's sake, you just have to use what we shared now so that we can go along. But those things are what you can actually improve on yourself. You can make a Google search, but if there is time, we can also walk through it because I have the other version too. You can just walk through it and make sure. But for now, let's just, because of time, and so, okay, what we select for the destination. The destination, so for the destination, you have to select the SQL Server client. That's the destination, but your source, you select Excel. I'm responding to the questions online. Your data source is Excel. Your destination is SQL Server client. So if you select your SQL Server client, you automatically select the SQL Server that is installed on your device. So the data will be loaded on the database on your laptop, on your local device. So I believe I've answered that. Which the Excel do you have? Which one do you have? Yes. No, that's why I was like, can you just save it? Just go to Save As, select 97 to 2003. When you save as, check the format of the Excel, the workbook, select 97 to 2003. That will work with the default Access database that comes with your. So do you get it? So I believe that we've been able to. I believe we've been able to handle that. So SQL Server client. Yeah, SQL Server native client. So that's the destination. So are we good? Let's go. So the inner join, the way the inner join works, inner joins take the rows that are available, the data that is available in both data sets, in both tables. That's what you are doing with the inner join. So when you do the left join, so the left join is your left data, which is your primary data you are importing, you are selecting from. So everything on that left data, we have to populate. Everything from that left data we have to populate, and it selects the one that it relates with from the second table. So the same thing goes for the right join. So the full attach join, it selects both of them. In the case that what is in this, the left data, is not in the right data, it selects a none. It just selects a blank space from the right data. And what is on the right data is not on the left data. It selects a blank space from the left data. So please let me know if you get that, but let's just go and work with it. So So if you look at our table, can you see my screen? So this is the first, this is the sales table. Now you find out that the columns we have here, we only have quantity, the quantity sold. We don't have the price. We don't have the price from, the sales table at all. So now, but then we have the prices from the product table. Sorry, are you following? Please, if you are where I'm correcting that, this particular query, let me just see your hand to know that. Okay, Miriam said no. Okay. The reason why we have the cohort alongside, because we are using the cohort is the database. But if I don't want to use the cohort, I'll just use a query to select a database. So that will be the default database I'll be using. So the query will just be used. So the database is cohort 2. Then I go with my go. So with this, I don't have to use the cohort. I don't have to use the cohort anymore from my select table. I just use my select table. I don't know if the person that asked that question gets it. So at least we have some people who have been able to make that, who have been able to import the data successfully. Are we, or please let me just see your hand if you have successfully imported the data, so we know who we are. Okay, the others, what is the issue? Let's see if it's something we can debug. Can you please share the file with them directly so they don't have to download it? Can you share the file with them directly? The file, you can give me your drive, I'll just put it there. So with this, we've been able to make our first query, but this is, we are selecting all the tables from the 2018 sales table all the columns from 2018 sales table. So if I want to do this select, there's another way I can do it. I can just do select star. So this also select everything. This also select everything for me. And also something where you also have to take note of is you can see the rows. You can see the rows that was, can you see my cursor? So this is the total rows it selected. Okay. So at the same time, I'll just show where we are. Also, I want to select all the products. I want to select the product table as well. Now, we can do some comparison. The reason why I selected them together so that you'll be able to see what I'm trying to explain. From my output, you've been able to see that from the sales table, we have the product ID. And from the product table, we also have the product ID. So the product ID, we have the product name, we have the cost of the product, and we have the original sales price of the product. We have the discount, we have the current sales, and we have the tax. So I don't know if this one is on your data, but this is what we have. So now, if we want to calculate the total sales that was done by order, what do we have to do? We just join the two tables together and we multiply the original sales price, with the total quantity, with the quantity. We've been able to get the. So that is the first join we are going to do. Do we get that? So can I go on? Okay. Please ask. If you have a question, just ask. Yeah, I use it. Yes, so that when I'm selecting from a table. Okay, the goal is, if I didn't put that goal, it will only run that use cohort 2. It will proceed to run the select star from 2000. It will just run from the beginning of the script to the end. Yes. It will just go, but that's when you have a long script you want to run. So you see, subsequently, I might just choose to go with I will have to select the database because I want to run a particular script. I just want to run a section of the select. So I don't want it to give me an error that I did not specify the database I'm using. So any other reason why I should not go on? So are we good? So what's the name again? Yeah. You've been able to. Yes. Okay. So we've not gone. Your system is not. Mm-hmm. So you just be patient. I believe it's the speed of the system somehow. That is what could have caused it. So just give it time. Now we've used a lot of time, so let's just go on. Now with this, we've been able to capture what we want to do next. We want to get the total sales amount. That's what we want to get. So the only way we can do that is to multiply the price by the total quantity sold. So we've been able to get the total sales. So there I will just go down to my, I'll just like to copy this code so that I don't have to be running all over again. So I don't have to be doing a lot of select. So once I have this, how do you, oh, might take a while for you to write this. That is what I'm thinking. From where? From where? Are you on the Zoom? How did they get this? At the time we will spend will be much. So, but this, so this, if we look at this table, if we look at what the query that was just run, we've been able to see, how do I code? This code, like the code is there. I should send the slide. They can copy it. Everything on the slide is code. Just copy the code and put it section by section. Now let me just check. I know. Should I? Let me just. So please, you can just use this time to catch up. Yes. No, so it will share it. It will share the code with. So it will share the code with you on each section I'm running. If you just share the code, you just copy it and run it alongside. While I'm explaining it, he will tell you how you get it. Yeah, I will show it, but the time you take to copy it might be longer. taking long. Okay, just only that. You know, I think we put it online. I've not. Okay, but once you get it now, you have it. So I just want to do it and close my thing. Okay, please. Okay, yeah. So here we share the code. Now, this code is if you have a select, if you have a cell, if you have a join table, so it's the join, it starts executing from the data you are selecting it from, which is from, it executes this part first. What it does here is it brings the sales table, and it brings the inner join, it brings the inner join table. So it joins them together with the product ID. So once it joins them together, you have like a table with multiple columns. That's when it does this selection. So that is the way the code, the SQL code of join works. And it works the same way for any type of join, even when you are doing sub query and all, it works with everything. So from here, we find out that we already have our total 6, right? We have our total 6. So now, this is something I did also. I just, because in this is where we created the 6 table. You remember we have 3 6 table, right? 2018, 2019, and 2020. So we have to join the 3 6 table together because they all have the same number of columns. So that's what we have to do. We have to join the 3 together, like stack them on top of each other. So we use the function union all. This union all selects, it takes the first table and take the second table and take the third table. It joins them together, like one on top of each other. That's just the way it does it. But if I should use union, the union will always select unique, the one that is unique among them. So it doesn't select duplicate. In that case, like I might have some rows in the first table, and I have the same row. The value that appeared in that row in that first table appears in the row in the second table. It will not select both of them. It will only select the one in the first table. So that is the difference between union and union all. Is that one clear? So with this, I can run this. Once I run this script, so what it does is it selects the 2018 data and it saves it as a view table under sales 2018. I'm explaining the code line by line now. So it selects the sales table 2018, it saves it. You see, I try to change the name so that the name will not cause conflict here. We have a 2018 sales, but I'm renaming it as sales 2018. The same thing, this width make us to create a temporary view table. If you start with this width, it make us to create a temporary view table. So this is the view table we are creating for 2018. So we work with this axe. So this axe makes it to assign it. Yeah, that was you know, before I decide I will go with this, I've already written this script. No, I'm not, I'm working with this. This is the way I will work. For throughout this, so anyone that comes like this, I'll just remove it to avoid conflict. So with this, we've been able to select all the rows. Okay. He said, why did I use? Why did I use this use cohort 2? This one tells the database that this is the particular test dimension. This is the database I want to do my query from. So that's what it does. So this use, you can choose to work with multiple databases. That is the function. Like I have to work with different databases, but because the database, the data that are in those different databases are related. So I'll just use this use to indicate at each particular line of my code that I've switched to this database, bring the data for me and work with it. So that is what we are. So I said, but if I'm using from the database before I name my table, so there's no need for me to use the other one again. So that's the difference. So because I'm going with this, so I just have to remove this. So that is. That .dpo is just like this is showing a directory. Is it necessary? It's just like a link between your table and your database. It's just like you say, why am I using dots? You get it? So it's just like something you are trying to concatenate something together. So the format is, this is the way they built it. You can't change it. So if I remove it, it will throw error. I should probably share this script on the Zoom. I don't know. You can share it with me. Yeah, let me share it on that. So you can copy it and share. So now what we have here is yes, we can join table from different database. I'm just responding to the question. So we can share table from the different data. We can join table from the different database as long as the table they are related. Once they are related, it doesn't matter which database are they coming from. So we can join. Now, if I run this script, it's right. So what I did, I select 2018 as a view table. I select 2019 as a view table, and I also select 2020 as a view table. So I will have to union all of them together. So when I union all of them together, I also select it as I also save it as a view table. I save it as says. So now I'll just have to, when I do this select, so the select I'm doing now, you find out that I'm doing it from only this one, right? I'm doing it from just only this 6 view table, but this 6 view table is linked with the other subquery. So these things, they are called subqueries, right? So I just want to work with one data. I don't want to work with 3 data with our sales table. We just like join the 3 sales table together and work with it. So I'll just run this script and now it's telling me that the sales table is already exists because I have it already on my own and I did not alter it. So in that case, I can just write 1 so that it will work for me to know that they say. So I've inserted table, I've inserted 10,000 rows, over 10,000 rows into the sales table, right? So this works fine for me. If you run this code, it should work for you as well. Has anybody run it? I believe it. Sorry, how can they see it? Because it's something you just have to work with me. So we work very fast. Because if you have to start selecting this, you want to start typing it, it's going to delay us. So that's why I was just like, we should share the script, we'll run it. So I'm responding to somebody from the Zoom. When I was importing the data, I have to remove those special characters because I don't want to work with it. But if you are working with it, it should be fine for you. Has anybody run this? Or should I continue? It's showing error. What is the error saying? Hello? So have you been able to run this? Did it run? Okay, you that said it's showing error, just try and add this to this. Add it to this into. So now look, why I have to do this into is I'm selecting from this six table everything, and I'm writing it into this table. So that's why I said select star, write it into this table from this our view trace table here. So in that case, we'll be having a view table on our database. You see, because I added one to mine, I'm having two sales table here, but I'm just working with one. So it's just for demonstration purpose so that you see that it's run. So if you don't have this, if you don't have the code, can you just show your hand? You don't have this code. Okay, so somebody, Marian, if you can hear me. So the reason why you are having this table, why you are having this error is it might be a particular table have more than the same column as others. So I will just handle that with, I'll handle that with this. So depends on how you imported the data. I just shared the code on the Zoom. This will help you to delete the F9 and F8 on the 2020 sales table. So this will delete F9 and F8 column. So it's just the format we use to import the data. So Marian and have you been able to run this with the code? So if you are having that error, just use this to handle the same. Yeah, that's why I share this code. You can just type it. It's very short. You can just type it and type it on a different query, a new query. Yeah, you just run it. It will remove those column F1, F9, and F8 from the 2026 table. Well, that's what it will do. Okay, your hand. Hello? You are raising your hand. So can we go on? So if you have created this sales table, we've been able to work with all our query now without having any issue. So then you can run this script, you can run this code that was shared, the inner join, and we have run it before. We ran it before, and we have. This was how we were able to create the. This was how we were able to create the sales. We were able to calculate the total sales per order. So can I go on? So this is just for you to know. We also have something. We also have what we call self join. So the self join, just it's join a table by itself. So it's just like this code is it's supposed to. If you have the data, it works. But we don't have the data. We don't have to run this code now. This code we run. It selects the customer. It selects two customers that comes from the same location. So, but you look at the where clause, you find out that it's not selecting, the customer cannot select itself anymore. Just like I'm a customer from this location, I select another customer. So we have two columns for a customer to a customer in that location. This helps if you want to probably make a sales to from a customer in a location to a customer in that same location. You want to make a transaction. So that's why this table is useful. So then the union, this is the union table. So the union table, like I've explained this before. So what it does, it can join two or more tables together. The difference between the union or and the union, I've explained it. One select duplicate, the other one just only select unique value. And it has a condition. This is where you see where that condition is coming from. It has a condition that they must have the same number of columns. So like what we have in 2020 data, that we have extra two columns, which are none. So that's why it was throwing that error. But if you run that auto query to delete those two columns, then we'll be able to run this, and we everything will work. So that is, and the columns must have the same data type. Because I'm certain that the column have the same data type, that's why I don't have to go through that step of showing that the columns have the same data type. And the last condition is they must be in the same order. Like if I have a product ID, the column next, if product ID is the first column, so the product ID must be the first column in all the tables. If the quantity is the second column, the quantity must be the second column in all the tables. They must follow the same order for the union to work. Without that, the union query will not work. So in the case where it does not work, that's where you have to use this type of select I did here, where we made, create a temporary table, a temporary view table. You do this select, you make sure that you arrange the column the same way they are supposed to come in before you union them together. So this also helps us to handle that. But because our table is arranged, the columns are arranged in the same order, so we don't have to go through that. But in just like in a use case where you have to run the code outside the lecture, you can just experiment with it and see. You'll be able to, once you see the error, be able to debug it and everything works. So how many of you have been able to create the 6 table now by joining the 3 tables together? So have you been able to create the table, the sales table? Has anybody been able to create the sales table? What's the problem we are having? Is there any difficulty? What are the challenges? Why haven't anybody been able to create the sales table? Yeah? The code. Okay, it's because of you don't have the code. How can they get the code here? Yeah, the people that. So that we can just, you just copy and you paste and everything works. So you can go and run multiple at home. A public Google Doc. If I paste the public Google Doc, you will not have it here. People online will also have it. Yeah, those one are not there. I can just add it to it. Can you give me the? Yeah. Is there anything on the flash? Hmm? But they can see it there. Is there any problem? Where did I paste it? Okay, yeah. Cool. on my internet. Okay, so I believe everybody have the code now. You have the code. Now let's go for the first page. We have to alter, we have to delete those two columns. So that should be our second slide or third. Just the second code, run this code. I've ever successfully run this code and it works. Please, I want to get response so that we'll move fast. We have wasted a lot of time. Okay, it works. So then we run this code, which I've explained before, so that we can write it into the sales, into a sales table. We just want to use want to make all our naming convention to be uniform so that everything I run here works for you as well. Is it working? So it works. Okay, at least we have it works. Then we move to run this code. So this code helps us to calculate the total sales, which I've explained before. Okay, what we've done here, we select, is this what you mean?
Yes, yes.
Who is? Who has access to annotation? Please tell him to disobey this, enable the annotation. So what we do, we so what was done here, we select 2018 table, we write it into the sales 2018. So this is a temporary view table. It only works inside this script. So we select the same thing for 2019. We write it into sales 2019, and we select 2020, and we also write it into sales 2020. So now what makes us to be able to write this is with this, the with command. This with command makes us to be able to define variables or table. We define them, it holds them prior to the script we want to run. So once we have that, well, we union the three tables together, and we save it as a sales table. So the next thing is we select everything inside this sales table. We write it into a sales table in our database. So that's how we got to this sales table. So once you run this script, everything works, and you are not supposed to have an error. So like my case, I just want to run it again so that you see it works. Everything works. It writes everything. So now we are working with only 6 tables. That's what we'll be working with now. With that, we'll be able to go on. So we've explained this. Now, the next action is we want to do a group by. We want to do a group by. So the group by is we want to sum, we want to aggregate. Then we'll be using an aggregated function. And I believe it was taught here, it was explained yesterday in the class. So the aggregate function we are using here is the sum. We want to calculate the total sales per day. Remember, we have the dates of sales from 2018 to 2020. So we want to calculate the total sales per day. So what I will do, I'll just copy. Now I paste. Once I run this script, everything works without having an issue. So you should also run it too. Now, you should be able to see this table. So what was done here, because I just have to cast this, this was for experimental, this one was for the formatting of the date, for the date to be formatted well. Because when we imported everything, it's come out as a date time and nothing in the time. So we just have to, like this, I don't want this time, this extra time that is coming out as 00. So that was the reason why it was formatted this way. So you see the date comes out final with this output. Is that clear? Marian, you can import it with $sign without removing the quote, the quotation between the name. It will import, but just for the final, for simplicity, that's why we have to remove them while we are importing, and it makes our code to be neat. So that is, I believe I've been able to answer Marian's question. So with this, have you been able to run this? And it runs fine. So we'll be able to move down to the next. So our next, okay, let me try and explain this. It's like I didn't explain everything. So what it does, it selects from this sales table. It selects from this sales table and it joins it with the product table. So how do we calculate total sales? You have to multiply the quantity, the number of quantities sold by the current price. So that's how we have the total sales. And we added a where clause that where everything is just 2018 and 2019. It doesn't include 2020. So I can choose to remove this where clause. Everything still works fine. Now we see that they will be having a larger number of rows here. Initially, it was just if it was 730. Now we have 881. So now there is no where clause. So the where clause is just to also tell us that while we are using group, we can use where. And the where clause as well, if you are grouping by, the where clause comes before the group by. So in this case, if you want to run this code, the first thing it does is it runs this join. It comes to this next thing is the where. It runs the where. After I have run this, the join, it filters by this. It doesn't add 2020 data to it at all. So the next, before it also group by the dates to be able to aggregate all the values to each date, and we order in a descending order. That's why you see that the first one is the first date, is the date with the highest date. Second one is the date with the second, the third, and in that order, in a descending order. So it works. So we've been through that. So the next one is where we are doing a group by. Now, if you notice that our date is just a date, I cannot use a date. Once I'm using a date and I'm trying to format it to just be month and year, I'm trying in this number one is I'm trying to format it to be month and year. And the question we are trying to answer here is which year, which month and year has the highest sales? So how do we handle this? We have, if I run this code, once I run this code with this, you find so if I run this code, you see, we still have the same total number of rows, meaning it's not even aggregating it with the month. And just a little observation, you'll be able to see the first row, we have January 2019. Just move down. The 11th row, we also have January 2019. Okay, the 11th. Okay, let us use March 2018, the second row, and we also have March 2018. Just check, we'll find out that we have them, they are repeating. The 12 is this. So how do we do this? So the only way we can do this is to use that. We define a temporary table. We define a temporary table like this. Now, if I run this, we see the total rows have reduced. Now we are having just the number of months in the 3 years that we have the data, which is just 29. Now, the reason why we do this is selecting all the column. This star select all the column, but I choose to add a month and year. I choose to add a month and year column to it, meaning it's selecting all the column and it's adding a month and year column to it. So that is what we are creating as the sales per month. The quantity sales per month. Then we come over here and do the select from our temporary sales month. We do the same group by with what we've seen before and the same order. Now we find out that the month which have the highest sales is March 2018 in that order. So you see the difference between these two codes. What we are trying to solve, the two codes run, but then we are having discrepancies with the result, the output we desire. And the correct output is the number 2. So whenever we want to use a reference, we want to create a reference column on our table while we are doing the query, we should be careful. Make sure that and we can do second step verification. Just try and do second step verification and see what you have, and then you know what you get. So from there, we can also make subqueries. We can make subqueries with our tables. So we can select from a select, like we have a sub table, just like this. Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you all see my screen? So look, we've been creating a temporary table before and everything works, right? Now, what we want to do here, we want to create a temporary table that have our total sales amount, a temporary table that have our sales amount. No, like, I mean, okay. Okay, it's too small for them to see. But I thought they have the code, so that would have make it to be easier for them. No problem. So this table also does a subquery. So the subquery, we see that we've calculated the total sales by joining two tables together, and we name it as the sales record. So from the sales record, we're able to do a lot of aggregate tables. So from the sales record, we add a sales person. So the reason why we are doing this is we want to know what is the total sales each sales person make. overall over the time, like from 2018 to 2020. So now if we running the script, this is what we have. We've been able to see the output, and we see like, okay, we see the way the total sales they've made for the sales record. So this also can be used in a subquery, like the subquery to be obvious, which is the same thing we have for this. So this script, this code also does the same thing, and we have the same output. So then what is the difference between what I have here and what I have there? So from our select, you see where we are doing our select from. This is where we are doing it from. We have a select inside select. So from the first select is coming from our sales record, which we used in this case as a sales record. Then before we do the order join, and we did a group by and we order by. So this is how we can go. I don't know if we've wasted a lot of time trying to import the data and also sharing the code. So I don't know if you have any questions. We might be able to answer them. And so do we have any questions? Our online participants, do we also have questions? I think I've answered most of the questions. Still, most of them are false. Okay, and Bello, can you explain the function of the X and P? Okay, the function of the X and P on the code is just alias. I don't want to be using product anytime I want to select, because now I'm doing a joint table. If I'm doing a joint table, anyway I'm selecting any column from the product table, and that same column also exists on the sales table, there will be conflict. So you have to specify where the column you are selecting is coming from. So that is the reason why we are using the P as an alias and we are using the S as an alias. It's just an alias to the sales and alias is to the product. So that is the reason why we have that. I believe I've been able to answer Bello's and Betsy's question. So in SQL, it gives you so that I don't have to be writing sales all the time, and you don't have to be writing product all the time. So that is. I don't know if there is another question, so we'll have another class coming up soon, so they also have chance to continue their learning. So with this, I'll say thank you for joining. It's a pleasure being your instructor today. I know we are having a lot of challenges because what we are about doing is quite advanced. You just did an introduction yesterday, but you always have access to the code, and I believe the code has been shared with you and the data is also with you. You can ask on the classroom and ask any question. I will be able to provide answers to that. Thank you very much. Okay, we have. Import the code or the data, which because it was the code, you copy it and you paste it into the query editor and you run it. So the data, and I believe, is when I actually import my data, it was quite easy, right? So that is, if you follow that format, it should be very easy. So the reason is the format of the data you are using. If you are using Excel, you must use the one that is compatible with the database you have on your PC. So the default database that comes with SQL Server Management Studio is the 1917-2003. So for you to override it, probably you want to install the Access database of 2016, 2013, which is the modern Excel format we used to have now, which is the XLXS format. You have to install that Access database, and you also come to your Access. You come to this your Management Studio. You come and activate it here as an agent. You must come and activate it. So the process is long. We don't have to go through that. This is just like being able to understand how the query is run. You've been able to run the query successfully, understand the structure, why we are doing the stop query, why we are doing join. So this other one might be a session they might have to organize for everybody to have access to it. For my own case now, I can import any data and everything works fine. But for you, you've not done it. You have to also activate it. So for online resources, SQL query code and resources. We have a lot of them. People write blogs on it, but there is also a structured online you can just follow. Like we have different video tutorial for them. People have channel for them on YouTube. You can watch a lot. You follow them and make sure that it works. If it doesn't work, you can even ask questions on the YouTube channel. And the owner of the channel, the author, will respond. But the other one, if you want to go with reading, you can use the WS School. They call it WS School. It's just like W3 School. Yes. That their SQL is also, you don't have to pay for it. It's basic, but understanding how it was structured, why it was structured that way, makes you to understand it, and you have the database installed on your system. You can also run it. Their data is also available on it. You can just download their data there and import it into it, either with CSV. If you are not having issue with import it with CSV, you import it and everything works well. Just like if my browser open, I would have just show. Let me see. I hope I'm not taking too long. I just want to show a example of the resource here. Yeah. Can you see mine? Yes. So look at it. It has been structured. This is the full tutorial. It goes from, it explains the different database you have. It goes to introduction, how the syntax works, This you don't have to watch video. You read whatever there. The comment there is very simple, and their code are very simple. You see how the syntax works, how they do the different type of select. You see how they do these things, use the where clause, the and operators, the order by, insert. So you see a lot of them, you work with them. It's very simple. Work with this first, then you have to upgrade it henceforth by writing more complex code. So everything works fine. So, this is practical, and the other part is if you want to, it's just like now, you just have to structure your own project you want to be working on. Yeah, that's what they call it. So if you encounter an interesting database, interesting data, not even really a database, you can download it, load it into your database, do any type of SQL query you want to do. You can do different type of cleaning, do everything. Then you can share your code online and your findings. So that shows that you know how to use it and everything works fine. Thank you very much. I have overstayed. Thank you for your time, and thank you. Thank you.